What's up, guys? My name is Elias, and James Gunn's Superman is officially in theaters, ushering in a new era of the DC Universe. After many years of superhero cinema, numerous properties have received a plethora of adaptations, more so with Superman. With an abundance of sequels, remakes, and reboots nowadays, it's difficult to decide which ones deserve a spot among the upper echelons of the comic book world. Though every movie provides its own significance toward the Kryptonians' mythos, this video will stamp my official ranking of each Superman film I've seen from 1951 Superman and the moment to 2025's Superman. 1997 Steel and 1984 Supergirl will not be on this list as they are more Superman adjacent films than movies where Superman plays a significant role. We're also strictly going theatrical releases, avoiding any animated features. So this is going to be my list from the worst to the best. There's going to be some hot takes. Can't wait to talk about it with you guys. And now let's get it. In last place, I got Superman and the Mole Men. Mole Men, directed by Lee Sholem, is a dated story about gun violence as much as it is about Superman pimp slapping an angry mob to protect a few furry mutants whose home was disturbed by oil drillers in Texas. If you think that's weird, then you'll understand why it's at the bottom. This movie served as a backdoor pilot for the Adventures of Superman series in the 1950s. George Reeves became instantly iconic in the red and blue and brings a stoic charm to the character of Clark Kent slash Superman. Lois and Clark, by the way, seem like the only two Superman centric characters from the comics here. The Mole Men were made up for the film, and despite their appearance, they're not even the bad guys in this. The town folks are. And let me just say that I get it had only been 10 plus years at this point that big IPs were even being made, whereas now we have hundreds of comic book movies. So I do understand the filmmakers involved were just kind of doing their own thing. Regardless, the storyline is just so bizarre. The special effects are highly dated to no fault of its own, but it was 70 plus years ago, so it's not exactly surprising. I mean, when Superman is flying or swooping in certain scenes, the film opts for cartoon inserts rather than traditional wire work, which is, there's some of that too, but it was just kind of jarring. Overall, it's not the worst iteration of Superman, as it's clearly a product of its time. At the very least, it is necessary to watch if only to appreciate Superman's humble beginnings and legacy, and is just overall interesting to see where Superman's ventures on the big screen all started. But even then, I love me some cheese. The cheesiness of this one, though, is just almost unbearable. Next up is Superman 3. Richard Lester's slapstick fever dream that was Superman 3 is a strange oddity that nearly killed the franchise upon its release in 1983. Serving as a direct sequel to the far superior Superman 2, the film sees its titular hero basically sharing, or submitting to be honest, a movie with the late Richard Pryor. You heard that correctly. Why they decided to go the route of making such an esteemed comedian essentially the main character of a Superman movie and concurrently its central villain, I'll never know. Leaving behind Gene Hackman's legendary Lex Luthor, Pryor's Gus Gorman, a computer programmer, finds himself working for an executive corporation plotting to rule the world financially through the coffee and oil businesses. But that's not all. This new venture in his life eventually leads him to create synthetic kryptonite to oppose Superman, which, somehow comic accurately, splits the Kryptonians into two different people, Clark Kent and evil Superman. I am not making this up. After Clark kills his alcohol-guzzling identity in a hysterical battle for the ages, he reverts back to his normal self to combat a newly transformed cyborg lady, again, not making this up, and satellite-guided missiles. He then destroys a supercomputer with a canister of acid, along with the help of a reformed Gus Gorman. Needless to say, director Richard Lester seemed to just not understand the character of Superman, and Superman 3 proves it. With so much to unpack and so many unforgettably cringy and boring moments in this 2 hour crap fest, the only reason to watch this would be if you're doing a Superman movie binge or need something to get drunk to and roast for a couple of hours. Not that I condone alcoholism. As a fan of so bad it's good films, I can see that this picture does not do the sentiment justice, as it barely resembles a Superman flick and lacks anything even remotely interesting or coherent in any way. And that whole 5 minute intro montage of the Three Stooges level hijinks is just borderline unforgivable. Next up, I got Superman 4 The Quest for Peace. If I could give this movie any merit, it's that it could be seen as the first superhero spoof ever created aside from Adam West's Batman. Released in 1987, Christopher Reeve's final Superman film was met with major criticism and disdain out the gate. After the epic flop that was Superman 3, Reeve initially refused to return for a fourth, but vowed to redeem his legacy once he promised more control over the film, proclaiming it to be the best one in the franchise. The outcome was a corny, lackluster product that makes you wonder how it ever got the green light in the first place. Superman 4's story sees the US and the Soviet Union engaged in a nuclear arms race that could potentially destroy the entire planet. Superman naturally decides to take action and fling all the nuclear warheads into space in a giant net, no less, creating a peace the likes of which hadn't been achieved before, hence the title. Prior to all this, Lex Luthor's nephew Lenny breaks him out of prison, allowing Lex to clone Superman with a strand of his DNA. Enter Nuclear Man. Mark Pillow's imposing figure should have made for an interesting foil to the Man of Steel, but his cheesy dialogue, dubbed over voice by Gene Hackman no less, and unchanging facial expressions resulted in a villain more memorable for his outlandish costume and powers than anything else. Superman ends up fighting Nuclear Man throughout the skies of Metropolis, then finally on the moon in a perplexingly slow motion bout that concludes with the superhero pushing the moon in front of the sun to weaken the blonde giant. The 80s were quite strange indeed. However, despite everything I just said, the quest for peace just barely falls into that so bad it's good territory that I love so much, meaning I can find some semblance of entertainment from watching it. Sure, the recycled clips of Superman flying followed by his random newfound abilities, as well as the film's parodical performances and blasphemous back half, leave me with somewhat of a weird taste in my mouth, but I still find myself preferring it over Superman 3 for the simple fact that it's just dumb fun, which is a trait that I've always been a sucker for. Plus, it's a Superman movie through and through, not a movie featuring Superman with Richard Pryor front and center. At number 8, we're talking Justice League. Now, let me just start by saying that I downright hate this movie. From the personal tragedy that befell Zack Snyder, which led to Warner Brothers 86ing him and bringing in Joss Whedon, hence why I call it Justice League, to the terrible color grading, bad CGI, unnecessary jokes, etc., etc., this movie feels like an abomination that simply should never have existed. That being said, I would be lying if I said I would rather watch any of the movies below this one over this one, as they're just not my cup of tea. At least this one has the Justice League in it, and at least we get to see a bright and hopeful version of Henry Cavill's Superman, CGI stash debacle aside, and at least it moves at a jarringly quick pace so you never have to spend too much time with it. I mean, Superman 4 is only an hour and a half, but it somehow feels way longer than that. I get genuinely upset thinking about this movie because, if we're being honest, it's not Joss Whedon's fault this movie was a dumpster fire. I think had Warner Brothers course corrected early enough before filming and just made a straight up Joss Whedon version of Justice League instead of a Frankenstein's monster of a movie that's part Snyder cut, I think we could have gotten something really cool and interesting. I mean, the man made the first two Avengers movies, and we all know how fire the first one at least turned out to be. But of course, Warner Brothers and their disgusting greed and desire to rush their cinematic universe without the talent that helped them start it off in the first place simply puts a bad taste in my mouth. I haven't seen this in 2 years, and when I did, I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League immediately after to compare. Boy, is it truly night and day. Look, I could pick this movie apart all day, but with shots of Batfleck soiling himself when Superman comes on the scene, Flash's floppy running and inexplicably following a Russian family around that not only doesn't speak but have nothing to do with the plot, this movie just kind of picks apart itself. Next up is Superman 2, the theatrical version, not the Richard Donner cut, because I have not seen that cut just yet. Often regarded as the most fun Christopher Reeve Superman movie, Superman 2 injected a dose of all the right ingredients that made the first film as special as it was, with some well needed action sprinkled into the mix, including the return of Margot Kidder's Lois Lane, did I say Lewis? Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, and renowned thespian Terrence Stamp as General Zod. The film carried a gravitas with it that only served to elevate what superhero movies could be. With Daily Planet reporter Clark Kent desiring to lead a normal life with his love, Lois Lane, he renounces his powers at the same time that Kryptonians General Zod, Ursa, and Non are released from the prisons via Superman's innocently reckless actions. Their arrival on Earth threatens its destruction as Superman must contend with the otherworldly being's power, which rivals his own. Stir into the pot Lex Luthor's own nefarious agenda with Lois Lane caught in the crossfire, and you have a wild 2 hour ride that, no matter how outdated it may seem, manages to thoroughly entertain. Though Superman ends up offing the three Kryptonians with Lois Lane's help and by way of throwing a goofy looking cellophane S at one of them, which Family Guy makes fun of, Clark wipes Lois Lane's mind of his alter ego with a kiss, which I know is comic book accurate, but weird in the context of the plot. Why not just let her in on your secret? Is it because she's a crazy broad and is willing to throw herself into rapid waters just to see if he is Superman? Maybe. Regardless, the film remains globally revered as a generally well done product of its time. At a time when superhero cinema was not the hottest topic in pop culture, Superman 2 truly stood its ground, becoming the ultimate Superman movie for a majority of fans of the Golden Age. As the first action centric of Christopher Reeve's films, the Richard Lester directed sequel, as well as the Richard Donner cut that fans seem to like a little more, which again I have not seen, was not only a solid follow up to the original, but a film that paved the way for superhero flicks to be taken a little more seriously. While not my personal favorite as a child of the 90s, aka I just did not grow up watching it, Superman 2 still bears a lot to like. Personally, I don't find myself desiring to rewatch this one per se, but I can appreciate its impact on the culture as well as the fans. While not personally in my top 5, Superman the movie is awesome. It's 1978, aka the first time audiences around the world could believe a man could fly. Richard Donner's classic Superman the movie becomes a box office sensation as well as an unforgettable introduction to what would become modern day superhero cinema. With many actors having read for the part of Clark Kent's Superman, only one truly fit the bill, a relative unknown stage actor named Christopher Reeve. Becoming the definitive version of the character for a large number of comic book fans, Reeve brought a warmth and charm to the last son of Krypton that surpassed the legendary George Reeves' turn in the role. With a comforting smile, solid build, and thorough understanding of what makes Superman, well, Superman, Reeve was able to do for Superman what Robert Downey Jr. did for Iron Man, for example. From Superman rescuing Lois Lane in the helicopter to his cheeky interview with her to him using his body to complete a train track, there are just so many quality Superman moments in this film. The movie also contains a remarkable cast that includes Margot Kidder's sassy and strong Lois Lane, Gene Hackman's hilarious but threatening Lex Luthor, and the legendary Marlon Brando himself as Superman's father, Jor-El. With decent enough special effects for the 70s, incredibly realistic set pieces, and a captivating story from start to finish, Superman the movie remains the only film of the Christopher Reeve era that I would actually be excited to watch again in the near future. Sure, the whole bit where Superman cries over Lois Lane's dead body, then turns back time by flying rapidly around the world to reverse its rotation seems a little goofy to put it nicely, but maybe the ridiculousness of the third act is what makes this relatively straightforward introduction to the character stand out so much. No, I did not grow up with these movies when I was a kid, but as a lighthearted, hope-inspiring throwback, I can sit down, put it on, and enjoy the instant classic for what it is. I could already tell this is going to ruffle some feathers, but in my top 5, I got Superman Returns. Bryan Singer's 2006 homage to the Christopher Reeve films divided moviegoers upon its initial release. While some, like myself, appreciate the callbacks and continuity in vein of the OG movies, others greatly dislike the somber tone and lack of action throughout its 2.5 hour runtime. Here's the thing, both sides of the argument are valid. Set in a pseudo-modern 70s style metropolis, Superman Returns seeks to explore what the world would be like without Superman. After a 5 year hiatus, the Man of Steel finally returns to his role as the planet's savior once more. His old flame Lois Lane has seemingly moved on, now with a son, who eventually turns out to be Clark Kent, and his arch nemesis, Lex Luthor, has been released from prison, wasting no time to enact his latest scheme for power, however convoluted his real estate stuff may seem. The film boasts some amazing performances, especially from the titular star of its endeavor and newcomer Brandon Routh, who was enviously capable of paralleling the altruistic qualities that made Christopher Reeve's version of the character as endearing as he was, seemingly able to embody a sense of loneliness that a godlike alien might actually feel on a planet as ridiculing as ours, Ralph zips around Metropolis effortlessly saving civilians, remaining humble yet powerful in the process. After catching the Daily Planet globe in mid-air, getting beaten in a weakened state by Lex Luthor and his goons, and hauling an island of kryptonite rock into space, Superman ultimately descends onto Earth while everyone watches in awe as the protector drops from the sky. And finally, the film closes out with that legendary and inspiring score by John Williams as Superman flies through the clouds with a smile on his face. Though nostalgia could be blinding me on this one, I'm not blind to that. Returns remains to this day one of my favorite Superman movies of all time, no matter how melodramatic it could be. At number 4, however, I got James Gunn's brand new Superman movie. Now, this is the most comic book movie I think I've ever seen. From the balls to the wall action, colorfully eye popping visuals, and instantly iconic performances, Superman oozes style. David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan command the screen as Clark Kent and Lois Lane, with the former becoming an exceptional Man of Steel for the new generation. From Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor all the way down to Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific, the performances are uncanny. The visuals look like something straight out of a comic book, and the action rivals the likes of some of the biggest comic book movies around. I can't say enough good things about this movie. It does somewhat feel like we're entering season 5 of a series instead of starting from its origins, but I think that's what I like about it the most. It kind of hits the ground running and never stops with a breakneck pacing from plot beat to plot beat that never feels like it's missing anything, but more or less forces you to stay engaged with its story. That being said, the stakes of the movie seem to make everything feel like an average Tuesday, which is to say that I'm not sure how much more intense and heart pounding they can make things going forward, as nothing seems to surprise anyone anymore in this universe. I know it's a minor nitpick, but when the movies above this one are as epic as they are, I can't help but sway the way of watching heroes saving the entire world rather than just a city that seemingly has bad things happen to it on a daily basis. All in all, it's a promising start to the DCU, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this universe. In our top 3, though, I got Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition, not the theatrical edition. So picture this, it's opening night. My brother and I meet up at the theater, literally dressed from the feet up in our Superman and Batman onesies, respectively. As we settle in our seats with our big bucket of popcorn and fountain drinks, the lights dim and the movie commences. Ben Affleck's perfectly casted Bruce Wayne's origin plays out over a few minutes, then the screen whitens. Suddenly, we're thrust into the billionaire's viewpoint as he witnesses firsthand Superman and Zod's destructive battle from Man of Steel. After running through a cloud of smoke from fallen debris, Bruce looks up into the sky at the fallen Kryptonians, vowing revenge against the alien threat. His dark theme plays. Dun 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 dun. Chills. And then the screen goes black. Fast forward a year and a half to the present, and a majority of the world has fallen in love with Superman while the minority questions what it really means to have him around. Jesse Eisenberg's nefarious Lex Luthor desires to destroy the fraudulent Kal-El using the Dark Knight's fixation for vengeance against him. Whatever your gripes about the critically ostracized BVS, there's no denying that the big screen clash between the two is one of the most epic and tension-filled disputes in comic book movie history. Personally, the movie's ambition far outweighs its faults, as viewers are treated to not only the coolest Alfred Pennyworth yet, but also the introduction of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, with the most epic theme to boot, and a rather unique approach to franchise building in the form of a flash drive with some juicy information on it. If that wasn't enough, Batman also fights a multitude of goons in inarguably the best cinematic fight scene in history before he, Superman, and Wonder Woman take on the ultimate threat in Doomsday, inevitably leading to the sacrificial death of the Man of Steel himself. Hot take, but Batman Superman is not as bad as some may remember. Case in point with its non theatrically released Ultimate Edition, which is by far the superior version. Generally overstuffed, the theatrical cut of the film left much to be desired with its glaring plot holes and rushing of the source material. But the Ultimate Edition, however, undoes most of the original's mistakes by fleshing out its world, providing a whole 30 minutes worth of intricate details and character development, while bringing the film to a crisp 3 hours of epic storytelling. Runner up is Zack Snyder's Justice League. The year is 2017. The hype for the Justice League film knew no bounds. Fans and moviegoers alike were going to finally see Ezra Miller's Flash, Ray Fisher's Cyborg, and Jason Momoa's Aquaman join the Trinity on screen for the first time ever. For all intents and purposes, the movie should have been the biggest hit in cinema history. However, tragedy struck. As Zack Snyder suffered a personal loss in his life, the former bigwigs at Warner Brothers disgustingly seized the opportunity to hire a new director mid-production. With the Avengers' Joss Whedon at the helm, hours of adrenaline-fueled action, chill-inducing teases, and mind-blowing cameos were left on the editing room floor, only for a bastardized 2-hour joke fest version of the film, with laughable CGI, mind you, to be theatrically released. Luckily, the force is strong with the superhero community. Fans rallied together for years in a global social media campaign to release the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Though it seemed there would never be the light at the end of the tunnel, the studio finally caved and allowed Zack Snyder to finish the movie as he originally intended, filming an additional 2 scenes and completing 2,600 plus VFX shots. Shortly after the arrival of 2021, Zack Snyder's Justice League was finally unleashed upon us, swiftly usurping the top spot amongst DC's vast catalog. Though ZSJL isn't technically canon to the overarching story of the newly branded DC universe, that doesn't stop it from being a 4-hour Bible of massive proportions. The war between the old and new gods, Darkseid's presence, Steppenwolf's updated design, and pure savagery, black-suited Superman, Flash's reversion of time, Harry Lennox's Martian Manhunter. I can rave endlessly about how dope this movie is. Not only does Zack Snyder's love letter to his late daughter pack a doubly emotional and physical punch, but it will doubtlessly withstand the test of time as it's passed down to future generations of comic book fans to marvel at. No pun intended. Thank you, Zack Snyder, for making one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and never stop doing what you do, dude. But officially coming in at number one is Man of Steel. I can feel the goosebumps all over again. It's 2012. I'm in the final stretch of AMC Theater's screening of the Dark Knight trilogy. Suddenly, the previews commence and a teaser for a DC project begins. The music, the tone, all of it caters to my inner fanboy. Finally, Superman skyrockets through the clouds and breaks the sound barrier multiple times. The title card appears. Man of Steel. Chills. Fast forward to 2013. It's Man of Steel's opening night. Dressed in our Superman attire, my brother, my mother, and I nestle in our seats, chomping away through popcorn as we tear up watching newcomer Henry Cavill first appear in his now iconic suit, preparing for his first flight. Oh, the emotions we felt as Zack Snyder delivered us die-hard DC fans an action-packed, realistic, stake-filled origin story for a godlike being like Kal-El. Finally, Superman was cool again. As Krypton explodes and Jor-El plots for his newborn son's escape, he and his love Lara fend off the determined General Zod before any harm come of their naturally birthed infant. 33 years post-Krypton's explosion, as well as Zod's imprisonment, Clark Kent ventures the world in search of answers to his past, eventually embracing his destiny as a superhero. Battling the Kryptonians who have escaped imprisonment, Clark ultimately decides the best course of action in protecting the planet is to off the ambitious Zod permanently. Naturally, Superman taking a life stirred understandable controversy when the movie was released, but over time, a majority of moviegoers came around and supported this novice Superman's actions, viewing it as a life lesson that would drive him to become the savior we all know and love today. It must be said that Man of Steel consistently gives me goosebumps with every rewatch, and with amazing performances alongside an engaging story and intense action, the movie just fires on all cylinders. In a simply elegant ending, Lois greets newly appointed reporter for the Daily Planet Clark Kent by saying, "Welcome to the planet," an all too appropriate sentence that convinced audiences to embrace this revolutionary, modernized version of the last son of Krypton. Lastly, Hans Zimmer's mesmerizing theme plays through to the credits, closing out a 2+ hour character piece that does Superman the utmost justice. I know people love the more brighter version that David Corenswet brings, but Henry Cavill is my Superman, and this is the movie that made me love Superman again. But there you have it, folks, my official ranking of all 11 live action Superman movies. Please leave a comment letting me know what you think is the best Superman movie. What is your favorite Superman movie? What hot takes that I have that you just did not agree with at all? And let's be respectful in the comments because remember, my list is just my list. It is not the right list. Be sure to like and share this video so that other people could join in on the conversation too. These rankings have been fun. I've done the villains, actors, now the movies, the Superman suits. I mean, all of it. So check out my page for all that content. Follow me on all the socials below. Hey guys, I hope you have a good one. Until next time, take care and God bless.